An Iron Range nonprofit is undergoing leadership changes, which force some employees to leave their jobs.
Yeah, the decision also generated frustration and anger on social media. Northern News Now's Madison Green went to the Range Regional Animal Rescue today to learn what it means for not only the employees, but also the animals.
A rough realization.
I kind of knew something was up, so I invited all the employees to come with to hear what they had to say.
The board of directors for Range Regional Animal Rescue in Hibbing told its employees, including former executive director Julie Colbert, the shelter would undergo a restructuring to become more involved. That involved moving to a working board.
A working board is where they jump in and they're doing most of the work, where the other board is where they just oversee it and they hire people to do the daily work.
According to Sherry Brock, president of the board, who did not want to do an on-camera interview, financial troubles forced them to cut costs.
They didn't come to us, so we couldn't figure it out together, type of a thing. And I've said that, to them, that I wish that would have happened, because then we could have stopped this. I think, anyway.
The first step in reformatting the entire operation was having all 11 employees reapply for their jobs. Some chose not to, but the 7 that did all received the same or equal positions. Still, this sparked a series of social media comments that former employee Jared Peterson said went too far.
Please just keep everything civil. I can't speak for anyone else myself, but I personally don't have any animosity towards anyone here. And I still love all the shelters, all the board members.
Peterson and Colbert agreed the animals should remain the top concern. The employees who reapplied and those that resigned are still taking care of the 15 dogs and cats currently housed there, waiting to be adopted.
We just want the shelter to succeed. That's all. That's what it's all about.
In Hibbing, Madison Green, Northern News Now.
In a statement, the city of Hibbing said this process has been a very difficult one, and we are trying to do our best in a very difficult situation. You can read that full statement right now on our website at northernnewsnow.com.